All right, that makes sense. All right, hi, my name is MarciaCronce. I'm going to start up the webcam here, see if it might help me talk to you better. Okay, everybody can see me okay? Hello, I'm a meteorologist with the National Weather Service, and I work at the Milwaukee Sullivan office in central southeast Wisconsin right now. And I was asked to talk a little bit about how I got into this career. So I will just try to be as brief as possible. In 8th grade, in middle school, we were able to have elective courses. I chose meteorology as one of them, and I got 100% on the final test, and I was like, yes, this is what I'm going to do the rest of my life, and it was like a turning point. And so then I was told by the guidance counselors, all right, you're going to need to study a lot of physics and calculus. So I focused on that for my high school classes and was very set on the meteorology, getting a meteorology degree, which helped to have a goal in mind. I went and did my bachelor education in the University of North Dakota in Grand Forks. They have an atmospheric sciences major there, and it was a very nice school, had a great time, finished in 4 years. What I did to help me get into the Weather Service was to volunteer at the National Weather Service in Grand Forks. For a very long time, going through UND, they have actually a lot of private meteorology sector going out of there, and so I was like, all right, I'm going to do private meteorology. And then I was anti-weather service, like, no, I don't want to work in the weather service. But for fun, I volunteered at the local one and found out that I really, really liked the weather service. They have very great working conditions. You only work 8 hours a day. You get paid for any extra time you're there. The benefits are good. The retirement plan is awesome. It's just a very strong, secure job, a career. You don't just lose your job randomly. You have to do a lot of bad things to actually get fired. So I was like, wow, you know, I should really go into the weather service. So then my science and operations officer there, kind of one of the people that worked with me, he suggested that I maybe get a master's degree if I wanted to move up in the weather service quickly, because it's a very competitive field. So I quickly started applying for grad schools, took the GRE, and I got accepted with a teaching assistant stipend from the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. That's where I met Julie Malmberg, your teacher. And I really enjoyed getting my master's degree. Not only did I reinforce everything I learned in my undergrad, but also got a lot of teaching information, and then a tiny bit of operational knowledge and a lot of research knowledge. All of it was really good. It kind of made my career well-rounded, my education well-rounded. And then I started applying for weather service jobs, and I wasn't getting in. I made sure I applied like 6 months before I actually graduated. And it was discouraging. I actually took a 2-week stint as a radio meteorologist for NPR out of Champaign. I was filling in for the main guy who was on leave for his wedding. And it was nerve-wracking. I've never done any kind of broadcasting, and I was so nervous, but it was a very good experience. And actually, it was able to give me 1 extra check mark as yes, I have forecasting experience. And that was one thing I was lacking to get enough points to be looked at for my application into the National Weather Service. All right, well, still didn't have a job at the Weather Service, but so I went home and I lived with my parents, and it was tough. Had been away for 8 years, but anyway, actually 7 years, but anyway, about 2 months of living at home, then I got an acceptance to the National Weather Service in Marquette, Michigan. I had applications out all over the country, so this was good that it actually relatively close to home. It was wonderful. I was what they call a meteorologist intern, which is just an entry-level position to the Weather Service. You work at the data desk, quality control. Marquette, Michigan is right on Lake Superior, so we did marine forecasts. And I got lots of practice with daily forecast, marine, also a little bit of aviation forecasting practice. I got to learn about the severe weather warnings and winter weather warnings and issued them toward the end of my time there. You don't actually move up in the Weather Service until you apply to a new place and get a promotion. So intern is like not the right word to use. You're actually, it's a permanent position. You could be an intern your whole 30 years in the Weather Service, but most people like to move up. Anyway, I also had many focal points, so I was involved in many activities, went to a lot of conferences, and did a lot of outreach activities. Anything to broaden my resume, I did it. And I was rewarded for it because I got a promotion to a general forecaster position at the Weather Service in Milwaukee, Sullivan, where I am now. That was after 3 years in Marquette. And now I've been in Milwaukee for about 3.5 years. And the time goes really fast. As a general forecaster, I do short-term and long-term forecasts. I write aviation forecasts, and I do the marine forecasts. And I issue the warnings, both severe and winter, and all different other kinds of warnings. I'm also the aviation focal point, so I try to get in touch with all the area airports, and I get to write aviation forecasts for them, but also we try to do decision support, is what the buzzword for the Weather Service. And I do as much outreach as I can. We do boat shows and the state fair and as many fun things as possible. I love to get out of the office. I'm not a sit there and sit at 5 computer screens all day type of person. So any opportunity to leave the office, I do it. Also conferences, but right now with funding, federal funding, as I'm sure you all have heard, money's tight, so you have to beg to leave the office, but it's okay. You work overtime for severe weather. Say there's big storms coming up, you're like, all right, I'll just work late, make sure I arrange daycare or that my husband's around to take care of the kids, and it's just part of the job. And where could I go next? I like being where I'm at now, but I don't plan on being in this position forever. I have to be willing to move around, to move up. I would not be able to probably get a lead forecaster position or even one of the manager positions right at my office. You have to be pretty lucky to stay on station and still move up in the career step ladder. So I have to be willing to move. And right now, my husband really loves his job, so we're going to be sticking around for a little bit. But I tell my boss, I'm like, I'm not just going to stay here forever. And it's actually bosses support that. They want you to move up. They want you to move around. So it's nothing to say, hey, I'm only going to be here for a couple years, because that's what you're supposed to do. Anyway, there's the lead forecaster in the office, which gives you kind of a management role. You're the person that calls the shots when you're on shift. And so they're typically, well, I could be lead forecaster now. You probably have to move to a smaller office. Milwaukee's very competitive. Warning coordination meteorologists, they're the people that coordinate the storm surveys and coordinate the outreach events. Science and operations officer, they try to connect the latest research from universities with operational meteorology. How can the latest science help us be better forecasters? And they make sure we're getting our training done and everything. A lot of web modules. Meteorologist in charge is the office manager, and they have to deal with all the government hoopla. You can also move into the regional offices. There's Central Region, Eastern Region, and so on. And the one for Central Region is in Kansas City. There's also specialty offices around the country, such as National Hurricane Center, Storm Prediction Center, Aviation Weather Center. I could go on, there's about 9 of them. Or you could work at the headquarters, the National Weather Service headquarters in Washington, D.C. So there's a lot you can do that you're in the lot you can do in the Weather Service once you get in, and getting in is the key. There are strict atmospheric science requirements, things that you need to. One second, please. Sorry, I was distracted. Anyway, there are strict requirements to get into the Weather Service, and you need to look them up to where to get in the Weather Service. It's available on NW or USA Jobs. I'm sorry about that. The bachelor requirements for an atmospheric sciences degree usually is what you need to get an NWS job, but you also need a lot of other things like check marks, such as I have a master's degree. That gives you more points, and you really just want to get as many points on an application. These are like a little experience, a lot of experience, or I'm super experienced. That kind of thing. It's very generic to get for the first cut at getting a job. And then after that, your actual resume gets seen. So you have to get enough points to be seen by the managers first. Then you've got to get enough brownie points on your resume to get an interview in order to get in. I can tell you that the latest intern job in Milwaukee that was bid out there were 300 applicants that made it through that first cut. 300 people that my managers had to go through their applications and pick one person. That's just to give you an idea of how competitive it is right now. If you're encouraging people to, if they want to get a meteorology degree, make sure that they're getting like a secondary degree as well, as in GIS or computer programming or learning about climate, chemistry, all different things. The more well-rounded you are, the better chance you might have of getting in, or you should get an experience at a different job. A lot of people work in the private company or TV meteorology before they get into the Weather Service because they need that experience. Remember my radio job, that's what got me in. Another way to do is volunteer at a National Weather Service office. You just have to go to your local office, see if they'll accept you, and go there on a regular basis. They used to have a SCEP program, but I guess President Obama did away with the SCEP program. That's where you'd actually get paid to work at the Weather Service while you're going through college. I don't think it is no longer. But anyway, then those lucky SCEP people that were able to do that, they actually get placed in the Weather Service. You're guaranteed a job. But like I said, that's gone now. Make sure that the people interested in being in the Weather Service are willing to move. The worst thing you can say is, I want a job and I want it in Milwaukee because that's where I'm from, is Milwaukee. So you got to be willing to move around the country. Live in Glasgow, Montana for 3 years. It's okay. Motivation and patience. You have to be extremely motivated. People can see through you, and the managers want to make sure their office is a happy place. They're going to be looking at personalities. They're going to be asking around at references to find out your personality, to see if you're going to mesh well with their people. They want you to be very smart, very good at your job, but they also want you to be able to get along with others. We work in an office where there's 22 people in our office total. Oftentimes you're alone with one other person on midnight shifts and evenings. You really have to be able to get along with people. So that's important. It might take a while, because it's very competitive. So be patient if you want a Weather Service job. and you have to be willing to do other things maybe in the meantime. Okay, I think that's all I had. I had 5 slides, and I'm opening it up to questions now if you have any. Question on the board saying, do many National Weather Service staff get trained through the military? Yes, in the past, there have been many, many people who were previously in the Navy, Navy typically, when I know the most, and they become meteorologists through the military, and then they can get what they call a civilian job at the Weather Service. And that happened a lot in the past. I think it's way less common now. However, if you had been in the military before, you would get almost you get a step up from people who were not in the military, just because it is a government job. So it's kind of tough. Civil Air Patrol is great. We actually call on the Civil Air Patrol to do surveys for us, aerial surveys, for like damage for storms. I don't know how well the Civil Air Patrol pays, but you'd have to make sure you get the education requirements that are, they're very specific for the Weather Service. You want to make sure you have those as a background too, which you almost need a meteorology degree for. Does the Weather Service contribute to the U.S. Global Change Research Program? I don't know about that. Thanks, Julie. Weather Service gets the funding from NOAA, which gets the funding through the Department of Commerce. So we're like a very small entity of the government. And our funding, we can't, our funding doesn't contribute to anybody. That's very tough, but. Yep, no problem, Jennifer.
Thanks, Marcia. That was great. Really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
I'm going to put you back as a participant again, and you are free to go. So thank you for giving us your time tonight.
All right. Well, thanks a lot. We'll see you.